Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today I am looking at the price of Theta and Theta Fuel. So it's going to be a 2-for-1 Theta deal today. And we're going to take a look at the price and see what she's doing, if there's anything that's changed, what can we expect, and things like that. So what you see on the screen right now is a line chart of Theta. So I got the line chart today instead of the candles, but I will go back to the candles. So this is Theta. I know it says Theta Fuel, but that's because I got them side by side. So you can see both charts side by side. And if you look at it, I mean, come on, it looks very, very, very similar, almost identical, right? So what's good for Theta is good for Theta Fuel. What's good for Theta Fuel is good for Theta. That's partly why I haven't been, concentrating too much on Theta Fuel, is because I look at it like, Theta's little brother, right? It's going to follow where Theta's going to go. So obviously there are minor nuances, there's differences and things like that. And that's why, once in a while I want to definitely check it out and see what she's doing. So first we will check out Theta, and then we'll circle back to Theta Fuel. So just looking at the price of Theta on the right hand side, you can see it's up 5.5%. It's doing a lot better than other coins. You see H-bar is up about 6%. These are just random coins. Algorand's up 10%. Tron's up 2%. Ethereum 1.5%. But Theta is actually doing pretty good today. So let's take a look and see if we can figure out what's going on. Nothing's really changed from what I've seen. We're still in that consolidation phase right before a big decision. I think that decision is going to lead to a major breakout. I really believe we're going to get back up into here somehow, some way. It's just a matter of time. And I'll explain why I believe that, and why I think it's definitely possible that it's going to happen. And partly is because, the phases of the market that I always talk about, which is, you have your bull run, which is the first phase, right? Your big breakout. That's when you have this major breakout, that is when the coin gets noticed. That's when it becomes on people's radar, right? That's when you're not supposed to buy it, right? So for example, let's say I never knew Theta, I didn't know what it was, and we had this beautiful bull run, right? And now we're up here sitting at the top. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, wow, this thing was less than 5 cents. And now it's, pushing $15 or so. So, yeah, right about there. $14 to about $16.50. From what? Less than 5 cents, I believe. It was one of the lows there. So, looking at this, I'm thinking, wow, that's a remarkable run. There has to be some type of substance here, right? Let's look into this, right? So just sort of explaining the psychological way the market sort of moves, right? So you have, down here, nobody cares. Nobody cares, nobody cares, nobody knows it exists, right? Think about, the kid at school that nobody knew existed, right? He was a loner. He or she was a loner. Nobody looked at them. They weren't popular at all, right? But then they grow up and now they're like multimillionaires, right? They're sitting up here. They got $20 million in the bank. They're sitting nice and pretty. And then all the people who see that, they go, wait a minute, aren't you that kid that was nobody? And now you're up here. driving a freaking Lambo, you know? And, that's when it becomes noticeable. That's when the coin says, hey, look at me. I'm something, right? And so here's the part where things change. So, the dumb money starts pouring in up here, right? Like, for example, if the loaner down here was nobody, then there's somebody. The girl that didn't look at him down here is now like, hey, come pick me up. I wanna go on a date with you, right? And that's the dumb money, like, hey, I'm following you, right? But a smarter way to do this is to understand the cycles. So it took everything off the screen. I flipped it back from linear scale. Now it's on log scale, so you could see the depth of the wave. So basically, nobody, your rise to fame, and then you lose it all, right? You crash. Then you go into a retracement. Then you come down for a reaccumulation, and then you blast off. That's usually how markets work. Now, the reaccumulation phase can do this, like a big ABC, like A, B, C, or we could do something more like this, where we're just stacking, accumulating in this area. So right here, all this price movement is a very good sign. See how it's not going down, but actually going sideways and starting to turn around? That is basically telling me we are in accumulation. Which means what? Which means we got to go into a retracement, then come back down for reaccumulation. So you have two phases of that. You have accumulation and you have reaccumulation. And so, for example, if the price does this, right? Let's say the price goes all the way up and then goes all the way down and then quickly goes back up. That typically leads to a break of this low. So, for example, but theta, right, is like this. It went all the way up, it came all the way down, but then it went flat, and now it's starting to go back up. So understand the differences between this one and this one. Big difference, right? So this one came all the way down, quickly came back up. This one has a beautiful base. So that's kind of how you know if this low is going to be broken. Now, obviously, it could be broken, right? Because we're still not out of the woods yet. We're still, there's some uncertainty, but it's looking really good. And basically, the big question that I have is, are we going to break this low after we retrace? And the reason why I don't think we will is because look at this. And then look at this, right? This didn't come, straight down, then straight back up. If it did that, then it's most likely going to break the low. Instead, it went down, it went sideways, it built a nice base. Then it's starting to, take its time, right? Because price can correct through what? Time and price, or both. So as the price comes back up, right, it still does this retracement like over here, but instead of breaking the low, it often comes down for reaccumulation, something like that. And that's really what I believe is going to happen. Now, that might be sort of, upsetting that it's not going to continue to go break out into new all-time highs. And I believe that it can, right? This is just an option. This is not financial advice. This is just probabilities of what I see. And of course, maybe theta doesn't need reaccumulation. Maybe all of this sideways accumulation is plenty enough to continue this bull run for us to break out of here. Obviously, that's totally possible, right? Um, and I'm not saying that's not going to happen or happen, but if it does happen, I will be pleasantly surprised. It's better to be pleasantly surprised than to be terribly, false expectations, right? When you have wild expectations, like it's got to do this on this time, and if it doesn't do it, then it sort of creates like resentment, and you're it gets you frustrated. So it's better to expect nothing and receive everything than to expect everything and receive nothing. You know what I mean? So that's why I like to play the conservative approach with everything. So, the idea would be we come back up here. And I really believe that. And that's a major move right there, right? That's a major move from where we are now to back up into the retracement. That's still another 400 to 500%. I mean, that's a major deal. That's like a bull run in itself, but that's only a retracement, right? The biggest thing for me is what happens when we get back up into here. That's the big question. So let's talk about that. And you say, well, why talk about that when we don't know if it's going to do that? Well, here's the thing. I really believe that we will break up and break out of here at some point. Which basically looks like this. So obviously we have a few different options. This to me is Wyckoff, right? You have your 1, 2, 3, and then you go into a spring, right? And now we're starting to accelerate. So the idea here is something like this, and then a continuation like this. And that's really what I expect to happen. Now, obviously that can look different, right? But it doesn't matter because it still gets us up here. So for example, the most bearish idea would be that this is a 1, 2, 3, 4. We still have one more low, 5, right? But then we start working back up here. Regardless of if that happens, I still think we got to get up here. Why? Because of the 5 phases, right? We have a rise, a crash, a retrace. We still need the retrace, right? We're still in the crashing. We're still in that crashing segment where we haven't done the retracement yet. So again, rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways, blast off. And this sideways action is basically, it's very hard to know where it's going to stop out at and reaccumulate. And we'll talk about that too. But first, let's talk about the retracement itself. So again, I think this could be a Wyckoff, 1, 2, 3. We go down for our spring and we continue up. Or this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a diag of some sort, and then we go up in 3, right? And then we come back down and then go. So that's kind of how I see it. There are, of course, other ways it can get into that retracement. And right now it looks very bullish. I'm very surprised about theta. I thought we could start by now developing this right shoulder. As many of you know, I've been talking about that for a while. And I think the reason why is because we haven't quite gotten up to this area here. We haven't quite met it yet, right? So we have this shoulder, this head. We're in the process of still creating the head, right? And then pull down for a right shoulder and then continue higher. But here's the thing. We don't have to do that. We don't have to develop that right shoulder if, in fact, we're correcting not through that shoulder, but through time itself. So look at all these candles here. It's like a cluster of candles right here. And we're just basically ranging sideways. It's flat. And it's not correcting down. It's not impulsing up. It's going flat, which basically means we're correcting through time, right? No matter what happens in a price is always correcting. 24/7 price is correcting, right? It's either impulsing or it's correcting. 99% of the time it's correcting. So, you could correct through price or time. So I'm thinking, okay, we're stuck in this range. We don't really know which way is it going to go. But to me, as a theta holder, I don't really care, because what I know is the bigger picture. When you zoom out, the bigger picture means more to me than what necessarily happens in this little area in here, right? So I really believe we can get back up here. I think that's where we're going. Now, for entertainment purposes only, how can we get there, right? And I've said, I've already given 2 ideas, but I guess the other idea would be this right here, which is, this is support here, right? Basically, a retest of this, or I should say a back test of this support, right? So we broke out previous resistance, right? Now we come down ABC into support, and then we start continuing higher. And that would be sort of, the other option, right? So, and then what that does is that obviously gives us what? The left shoulder, the head, and now we have this right shoulder in here, which is perfect, which is exactly what we want. So if we come back down and we test 86 cents, if you're holding theta and we come back down and test 84 cents, 86 cents, don't be upset. I think that's an amazing opportunity and also very bullish, because you have to understand, this right here, this whole move, right? One big giant move right here. And it hasn't really corrected. Obviously, it's corrected through time, but not really through too much of a price. So the other idea would be, we break this up here. So we're basically, let me zoom into the 2-day chart, or actually the daily chart. And basically what we're doing, right? Here's another idea. So instead of price coming down into the shoulder, back testing this area, instead of that, what we're doing is flagging out, which means, we're impulsing. So this is some kind of fourth wave. So 1, 2, right? 3, 4, and now we need 5. And maybe 5 gets us to break this, or maybe we run right into it. About $1.30. That $1.30 area. That's basically the target, the short-term target for now, is getting to $1.30. I believe that's going to happen sooner or later. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We get up here in wave 5, right? Then we start to consolidate and then go, or we come back down a little bit like this shoulder here, and then create the shoulder and then go. But guys, at the end of the day, what does it matter? It doesn't really matter. Why? Because I really think we're going to get up here, regardless of what happens in this minuscule area. Doesn't change what's going to happen when we get up here. So again, you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then go. You can have shoulder, head, shoulder, then go. Or, this Wyckoff, 1, 2, 3, go into the spring, impulse, consolidate, then go, right? Or you can even come down, back down into here, right? And back test this area, then come back up, then come, there's a lot that can happen. When you're in a range, it's there's a lot of possibilities. So I can run through all of them if you want, but it's kind of unnecessary, because really I'm waiting for something to happen, and nothing's happened except correcting, right? So this whole box is accumulating. So, and we're just basically waiting for this thing to continue higher, regardless if it comes down to back test, regardless if it comes and makes the shoulder, regardless if we come up here and it doesn't matter. We're expecting the price to continue higher at the end of the day, zoomed all the way out. What happens in the short term? Very hard to know, because it's correcting. Now, I can zoom in even closer. Let's look, just for fun. Look at this wave here. Well, first of all, before I do that, look at this. You have a channel, and you broke out of that channel. That's a very bullish sign, right? If a channel, so for example, if a channel is going up, it's likely going to break down, right? If a channel is going down, it's likely going to break up, right? So usually price does this and then it comes down, or price comes down and then it breaks up. That's sort of how it usually goes. Not always, right? Sometimes it can break up, sometimes it can break down. But in this case, we got the break up. So what I'm seeing here is a bullish descending channel, which is basically accumulation. It's kind of like a Wyckoff accumulation in the form of a descending channel, right? And you break out of this channel, and now look at this. Resistance, resistance, we break out, now we're coming down, we're consolidating on top of this downward resistance line and making it what? A downward support line. So we're supporting ourselves on this line. So I really want to see us looking at the chart from this perspective. I really want to see us stay above this channel, because if we come back down in the channel, we can risk coming lower, maybe down to the mean. So this middle line here would be a good target if we do break down, and then we circle back up. And guess what? That would do what? That would make the shoulder, the head, and that would complete the inverse head and shoulders, if that did that. So if we do break down into the channel, it's not a big deal. It's just forming, in my opinion, the right shoulder. If we stay above the channel, then we're just bullishly consolidating until we have the next leg higher. And now I can zoom in and show you what I mean about that. So let's go down to the 4-hour chart. So basically, there's a couple things that could happen in here. Right off the bat, I see a nice cup, and now we're sort of coming down. Maybe we get that handle and we break out. That would be number one. Number two, notice here. Remember I talked about the channels going up and breaking up if it's ascending or descending? Well, check this out. Here's an ascending channel, and look what happened. We broke to the downside, right? We broke to the downside. No big deal, right? But check this out. As we broke to the downside, look what it did. It's forming a descending channel. And look what happened. We broke to the upside. Gee, would you look at that? Right? So I think this is, again, a good sign. It's telling me that, you know, the buyers are defending this support area. And now look at this. We just made a higher low. So here was our low. And look at here's the thing. Check how bullish this is. We went all the way up this big monster wave. And if you cut the wave in half, 50%, that's usually where price likes to pull back. But theta is so bullish that it didn't, right? It held this upper area. So if I pull a Fibonacci, it'll make more sense. So if I take it from, let me take it from down here, and I'll come back up here, right? So let me get rid of it. So basically, the price was so bullish that it only came down to the 382, not even the 50. Normally, you have a 618 retrace. So if you have an impulse to the upside, what normally happens is a 618 retrace. But we didn't get a 618 retrace, or at least not yet. It could still come. But right now, it's defending that. And what that tells me is we're probably in some kind of fourth wave. So we still have another fifth wave to go. I believe a fifth wave is coming. Okay? So what else can be going on? Well, like I said, we have a big impulse. We have a low. We had a false breakout. So that's another thing I need to talk about. So notice how this was your high right here. Right here. And then the price came up and broke that high. But then it quickly came back down. Right? But you know how I knew? Well, you can never know, so I shouldn't say that. You know how I could tell that was going to happen? Is because look at the difference. So notice how this is trending up. It's impulsive, right? It's going up rather quickly. But then I want you to notice this. Look at this. Look how this is going up. This is going overlapping each other. So 1, 2, right? 2 is overlapping with 3, 4, and then a 5. Right? That was a diagonal. And that's how you could tell that it was just breaking this high to grab that liquidity to then take it back. So, in other words, it's just this move breaking this high is a correction. Just kind of how like Bitcoin broke its high from that 69K area, right? So it's not a problem. It's not a problem at all. It just needs more time to correct. So what could be also happening here? This could be an A, a B, and now we're getting a C, right? And this in itself could be some kind of diagonal where you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A three-way pullback, and then a continuation. So, you know, there's a lot of possibilities, and I can run through them. So another way to look at this could be this is your A wave, this is a B wave, and this is a C wave, and it's kind of like a flat pattern, right? It's kind of like a flat where you're going to get a spike to the upside, right? But then followed by more down. And that would make sense because that would end that fifth wave, right? What we're looking for. So like a 1, 2, all of this is 3, and then you have a flat 4, which impulses it up for wave 5, and then you come down for that bigger correction, right? And then zooming out, what that would look like, it would sort of make, you know, a little wonky right shoulder again, right? So we really got to work out this area in here. There's a lot of different possibilities how it can be worked out, but the point of it is, instead of trying to guess which exact one it's going to be, we just have to wait and see, because there's no point in guessing when, at least for me, I'm pretty confident we will get back into retracement levels. So regardless of what happens down here, doesn't matter. I think we're still going to get back up here. So this is just, you know, noise compared to the bigger picture of where we're going. And that goes the same with theta fuel, right? So we'll get into theta fuel in just a minute. Basically, that's really all I had for the price of theta. What I would do is just watch this range. So the range from 89 cents, right? That was your first range, and now we're building a second range, and that's pretty bullish too, because so like notice what's happening here when you zoom out. Looking at this price structure, we have this impulse, and now we're consolidating, building a base, a consolidation base, accumulating, right? We break above that base, and then look what we're doing. We're creating another base on top of it. So that's actually good. Those are stepping stones. So, you know, if we break out of here, you know, that would be, I would suspect, you know, one of the fifth waves, right? Unless, and then obviously, right, when you zoom out, you can, the whole thing becomes one wave, right? So this would be 1, and then we would come down for 2, and then we go up for that big wave 3 that gets us back into those retracement areas, right? 4, 5, back in the retracement. And then that's where the big question becomes, you know, are we going to continue? Are we going to go into a C leg, or are we going to go into reaccumulation? So break out, or come back down, chill out for a little bit, and go. Just like how this is a base, right? You break out and you develop another base. Let me take all that off so you can see it better. So just like I explained right in here, right? So you notice how this had an impulse, right? You have a base, you break out of that base, and now you're in another base, right? So you're building support on top of the support, which is, you know, major support, right? So you're stepping up. So the same thing could be happening here. So basically, you know, this is your base right in here, right? And then you break out, and then you develop another base on top of it. It doesn't have to be that big, but, you know, we're accumulating, we break out, we accumulate, and we continue on, right? If we get this action on top of this action, I'm going to be very bullish, right? If we continue to impulse like this and it's going too fast, then I'm going to be nervous that we're going to come back down. So we want to chill out, which we're doing, break up, which is coming, and then once we break up and get into these retracement levels, then we want to sort of go into reaccumulation, and we want to so basically we want to prove itself that it can sustain this support. So once we get up here, we want to prove it, right? And the best way to prove it is what? Correction. and not necessarily through price, but through time. So correct through time a little bit, so that would be what? Your rise, your crash, your retrace, and then you go into reaccumulation, and then you go. And that's usually how it goes. For example, here's BNB. You have a rise, a crash, and then it went up into a retracement. But then this was C19, and it actually did break the low. But basically, this is what was needed. So you have a rise, crash, retrace, and then this reaccumulation. Same thing with Bitcoin back in 2017 through 2020. We had this rise, crash, which is really what? We have bull, bear, cat, right? And then whales. So you have your bull run, you have your bear run, you have your dead cat bounce, and then you have your whales accumulating. So you have a rise, crash, retrace, and then you have this reaccumulation. And this is what I'm expecting for theta. And guess where theta is on this chart? We're like right in here. We're still down in here. We haven't even broken out yet. We're still way down here. So theta still has to go all the way up here. Then it has to go all through this. And then it can start to go onto its... That's what I would expect from a conservative approach. Right? And same thing with THETA TFUEL. So, and that's one of the reasons that I'm in XRP, for example, is because we're already at this point. Right? So we're already there. Not to say that it's not financial advice at all. Right? People have certain opinions of certain coins, and this is a theta video. But for the purpose of what I'm saying is, for the 5 phases, there's no coin I'd rather be in than theta, right? And XRP. But understanding that theta still has some work to do, because the reason why is because it had such a monster bull run and then it had a big crash, but we're still waiting for the retracement. And then we're waiting for reaccumulation. Here's a perfect example of what I'm saying. This is XRP. So XRP had the rise, right? It had the crash. It had the retracement. And now look what it's doing. It's in that reaccumulation. It's a textbook play. It's textbook. It's perfect. And look how long, look how big this thing is. It's monstrous. When theta went into its bull run, and Bitcoin and all of them, they went up into here. Then they crashed, and now they're starting their retracement. But they still have to come down for reaccumulation. XRP has already completed all of that. And XRP was very bearish. It's been bearish for years, right? And I don't blame anybody for not wanting to participate. Rather, whatever your opinion is on it. But for me, from a technical, only looking at the technicals, for me, it's one of the charts that I really resonate with, because it is at that point where something's got to give, right? And I'm willing to take the risk that it's going to do this because of all the requirements that I stipulate on myself. And one of them, right, is, well, the big one is this was the rise. This was the only bull run, by the way. We had a big crash, we had a retracement, we had reaccumulation, and this whole thing is one giant base, right? One giant base, and I'm expecting a bigger breakout. So I'm prepared, always be prepared to be wrong, right? This thing can come down and break lower, and it can come down and go into a C leg, and so can theta, right? But since it's already done it before, for example, right here, this is a good structure to compare theta, and I'm doing it for the support of theta, right? This is supporting theta's bull run that's coming soon. And basically this took a long time, but it still applies. So you have the big run, right? So imagine this is theta at 3 cents. It went all the way up to $16. Then it crashed. And now we're in this base down in here. This is where theta is right now. We're in this base. So what it's going to do is it's going to break out and it's going to get way up here. And then I don't think it's going to do this whole giant, terrible torture. I think it's going to come down a little bit and then go, right? Just like how XRP did back in 2014. So you had a rise, a crash, a retrace, and then you had reaccumulation. Look how giant that bull run was. Right? It was pretty substantial. 72,000%, 70,000 plus percent. And the reason why, and this is the thing, if I'm holding theta, I want to know what it takes to get to that 70,000%. I want to know what it takes to get to $100 theta, $80, whatever, right? And the best way to know is to look at other charts that have history. XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum have the best history, Litecoin too. So those charts have most of the history because they are, they're the classic charts, right? And for me, theta is creating something similar to this, but here's the thing. So going back to theta, comparing it like I had XRP on there, the question becomes, number one, I do believe we will get a retracement, 100%. Well, I can't say 100%, but 99%. We will get there. And then number two, does that retracement turn into a new bull run, or does theta have to come down a little bit, right, and go sideways for a little bit, build structure on top of this structure, right? So you're building structure on top of a structure before breaking out. To me, I don't care, because that's when fundamentals come into play, right? You're holding theta, maybe not from a chart perspective, but from a fundamental perspective. And I totally resonate with that, because I believe theta is in a extremely prime position to put a big dent in the universe when it comes to what they do. And I'm not trying to get into what they do. I'm not the guy to talk about the fundamental aspect of theta, right? I can give you the highlights, but digging deep down into what theta is and what they're trying to do, it's a big deal. And I think that utility value doesn't care where the price is right now, because remember, we're only at $1.15. We are super cheap, and we don't even have regulations yet. We don't even have the institutions yet. We don't even have a Bitcoin ETF yet, right? So we're at the beginning of and you could say, well, Bitcoin's been around since 2008, 2009. What took them so long? Well, first of all, this is a brand new sector. It's only been alive, 10 plus years? But the reason why it took so long is because there's a lot of people fighting. They understand that this is the biggest thing in history when it comes to markets and the financial system, because who controls the financial system? The central banks. And what do? They want to control things. And what is crypto? It's not really in their nature to control it, right? They don't like decentralization, right? But they have to kind of pretend like they like it. So that's why, Gary Goldman Sachs Gensler, right? He's a Goldman Sachs banker boy. He does the bidding for the banks. So does Elizabeth Warren. She put out a bill to ban crypto. You got to understand who's on your team and who's not on your team, right? So, for example, like tribalism within crypto. So, like, I like ADA. No, I like Dogecoin. who cares? We're all essentially on the same side. So it doesn't matter if you like XRP or Litecoin or Theta. We're all fighting on the same side against the powers that be who don't want us to be, they don't want it to exist. And they're going to either regulate it out the wazoo or do something to the effect of, making it unbearable. But I don't think they're going to win. I think crypto will win. And I think investors will win because, it's not necessarily the banks, it's the people who have their money in the bank. And those are the big wealthy investors who want a piece of this crypto action. But regulations need to be in place for that. And that's why they're trying this ETF and things like that. They're trying to subvert, an ETF is just like a packaged type of deal, but it's not anything, it's not a full-on regulation for crypto, and that's what we want, right? And I think that happens when we get up into here. So right in here is the depths of the bear market. We climb up, maybe it's the Bitcoin ETF or something that gets us exciting, right? And then all the work, right? The election year, the new administration, the new chairman, right? The new Congress people. A lot of decisions are going to be made in here. And I think those decisions are going to be good decisions that are in here that's going to create the price to go higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, right? But if the good guys lose, and the current administration with Gary Gensler and Elizabeth Warren, and they control the destiny of crypto, then you're going to look like this. It's going to be an A, B, C, right? And then eventually we'll go. No matter what, I think we're going to go. But it really depends on what happens in here. And I firmly believe the good guys will win this fight when it comes to the financial system, the crypto. I think everything's been set up from the very beginning. And, you have two sides and they're both fighting and that's why it's taken so long thus far from Bitcoin's creation until now, is because this is basically the fight of our financial system. Do we have a decentralized, like DeFi, right? The banks really don't like DeFi because, DeFi basically is finance, right? And what do banks do? They do finance. They finance your car. They finance, the wars. They finance everything. So if you have decentralized finance, then they don't make a penny off of it, right? Because it's decentralized. So they don't like that. So what do? They reach out to Congress like Elizabeth Warren and they say, hey, Pocahontas, can you please... that slipped out. Can you please, do the bidding for us and we'll make it worth your while? Like Gary Gensler and all of them, right? So basically the central banks control the politicians and they say, hey, look, this is not good for business. Can you please shut it down? But then you have the good guys saying, no, this is good for business. This is better for the American people, right? For we the people. It's all about we the people. I don't care if you're in China or France or Europe or South America, Australia. It don't matter. We the people, as us, citizens of this planet, of our own freedom, our own free will, our choosing of the whatever financial thing we want, right? And yes, it's all predicated on the US dollar, but at the end of the day, that's not looking so good, is it? I do think that will be pushed into some gold-backed system because there has to be accountability. Because if you go to usdebtclock.org and you look at the US debt clock, it's basically a ticking time bomb. It's basically like Alice in Wonderland. Nothing makes sense. So, and I think crypto and gold is the answer. And the answer will fulfill its prophecy regardless of what happens. I just think, the bad guys are in the way, and they're just basically a roadblock. So, and that's why I look at this chart as just an upcoming minor roadblock, right? We come up here, so we have this roadblock in here, and then we can start heading out. Just like I showed you with XRP and Bitcoin. Okay, so enough of that. You got what I'm saying. You understand where I'm coming from. So now let's take a look at Theta Fuel. Dang, 50 minutes already, huh? Okay. Well, I'll go as fast as I can. It's the same thing as Theta. I don't know if I can add anything to it. It actually looks more pretty than Theta because you have much more of a structure here. It's not sloping down, it's actually balanced, right? It's actually a proper accumulation range. So basically this is what I believe is happening with Theta and Theta Fuel. So if I just match this up here, I mean, it even looks much better on Theta Fuel, to be honest. Not to take anything away from Theta, of course, but from a structure point of view, it looks cleaner. Let me just show you here. Let me do the arrow. So you have this move to the upside, right? 1, 2, 3. Same thing here. You have 1, 2, 3. And then you come all the way down into the spring, right? Challenging this low and even potentially breaking the low to grab that liquidity. And you can see right here, if I match it up with the body, or let's do the wick. If I match it up with the wick of this low, which is the low you want to focus on, look what happens. We broke it. We broke the low right here. And that initiated what? The spring. So going back to the example, look at where we are. We are somewhere in here. This fourth wave, right in here. So let me make it bigger. We had our spring, we had our first wave, our second wave, and now we're working on this fourth wave in here, on this LPS. So basically, we're almost there. So for example, 1, 2, 3, into the spring. 1, 2, 3, into the spring. Then we have this 1, 2, 1, 2, right? 1, 2, 1, 2. Now we're in here, right? Same thing, we're right here. So what do I expect? I expect this. Boom. We're going to get back up here. And what are we going to do? We're going to chill out for a little bit. We're going to consolidate, just like right here. So when it breaks these two supports, we get up here, we consolidate, and then we start to climb. And that's what I'm expecting for Theta Fuel. Same thing for Theta, right? So how does that look, right? Well, it looks just like how it's on the screen, something to that effect, right? Now, is it going to go in a straight line like this and then go in a straight line? No. There's going to be a lot of corrections and pullbacks in between. But the general idea is this thing is bullish, and we have more upside to go, right? I mean, you can even say that this is a shoulder and this is a head, and now we're coming up for another shoulder, right? And then we come back up here. That's another way you can look at it, kind of like Theta again. You have this downward sloping trend line. Let me see if that actually matches here. Let me see. If I take this on the wick and I come, it's actually not broken out yet. So if I go with the bodies, of the candle. Yes, it is, but if I go with the wicks, it's not broken out. Theta is, on the other hand, right? So, like I said, it's the little brother of theta. It's gonna catch up, and I believe it will catch up. Now, let's talk about the bearish idea short term. We can actually see these areas right in here. We can actually come down and revisit that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, and now we come down for C, somewhere in here, and then we continue rocking it to the upside. So if I pull a Fibonacci retracement on that guy, yeah, that gets us to the 50 or to the 618. Perfect. Right? I don't think it's gonna backtest this area. I think that's too low. I mean, obviously it could, but somewhere in this area right in here. So, and we have a nice 5-wave shape. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now this is your first wave back, right? And it actually, this chart, believe it or not, actually makes more sense to me than theta does. Maybe I should focus more on this chart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A. And now it looks like we're starting to bounce back up. But then I think we might come back down for a C leg and then start to continue higher. So taking that off the screen, what does that look like? That's what I think is, I think that's a perfect setup. Because if you think about it, we ran right into this resistance here, here, and here. So triple resistance, right? So we need to break through that area, right? We need to get through that area, and what better way to get through it than to correct through time and through price? Because we already have the impulse. Now we're working on the pullback. Pullbacks can be erratic, and who knows what's going to happen, and then a continuation. So and then you also have that Wyckoff accumulation pattern where this is the spring right in here, and you have 1, 2, 3 going down into your spring. Then you impulse to the upside, you get back to this resistance area, you back test it, and then you continue higher. So there you go. That's basically it in a nutshell. If I wanted to look at it extremely bearish, again, I would sort of say that, I mean, it doesn't even make sense on this chart if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then maybe 5. But here's the problem with that is, if this is wave 1, look how, and this is wave 2 and 3. Wave 3 barely took the low out. So it wasn't really that good. Like theta, it actually came down more. So it doesn't really make sense. Obviously, it could happen, right? Anything's possible. But if I wanted to look at it bearish, I would say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have 5. We break this low, or maybe we get a double bottom, and then we continue higher. So regardless of if we do this, or we do this and then this, or this and this, it doesn't matter. We're going to get back up into these retracement levels at some point, I believe, right in here. And, remember, you can screenshot it if you want and hold me to it. I don't care, because I really am confident that we will get back up here at some point. Now, the way that I think that gets invalidated is if we break this low right there. If we break that low, then we're going to have to rethink everything, right? Because then at that point, it's like, okay, something's wrong. I mean, it's not dead, but, something's wrong. And then I would look at this probably like that. But then again, if it wants to come down here, it needs to come back up, right? A, B, and then C. So regardless, even if it wants to come up, I still think it needs to come up here. So that's it, guys. I think that should do it for now. I'm trying to keep it under an hour. But anyways, the rise, right? Rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways, blast off. That's the way I'm looking at it. So Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, leave a like, leave a comment, whatever. I appreciate you guys nonetheless. Thank you guys for listening. Take care.